Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Snipe and Score podcast. Crazy draft week, some big trades, some signings. We're going to talk about it all today here on the Snipe and Score podcast.
We got a lot to talk about today. We
We do
have
indeed.
multiple trades, multiple extensions. But let's start off first with the Flyers. They traded for Trevor Zegras. Aiden, what do you think of this move? So
I
Zegras,
think
I think he had some problems in Anaheim, but I don't know. What do you think? Does it make sense?
it's a great move for the Flyers. I really do. Zegras is still young. I'm kind of taking more of a Florida-esque route with this deal, as they traded for Sam Bennett when he was younger. Um, you know, Zegras has had some injury concerns, and he's had some really big concerns playing center. But from the rumors of it, I don't think he's going to be a centerman for the Flyers. I think he's going to be more of a winger. But we shall see. This kind of broke last week after we recorded the podcast. Let's see if I can find the details here. Here it was. It was Zegras going to Philadelphia for Ryan Paling, a second round pick, and a fourth round pick next year. Like I said, I think it's really great value for the Flyers here. And I understand where Anaheim is coming from. They've got um, McTavish and they've got Leo Carlson down the middle that kind of pushes out Zegras from being a center. Um, but they needed some youth, they needed some skill, and they got that with Zegras. And only losing a second and a fourth and a second round pick in this year's draft for a fairly weak draft class and a bottom six forward and Ryan Paling, I think is a steal for them. I think it's a great deal for the Flyers.
Yeah, Trevor Zegras has been kind of up and down. Hasn't had the best couple years, probably due to injury and all those sort of things. But if he can stay healthy, that's just one young guy they're adding to their arsenal. And I think if Philadelphia, if they finally get it together, I think they could definitely make some noise. And I'm a little scared of them. I think Rick Tocchet is a good head coach. I said a couple months ago that I think Vancouver's problem, or I think it was the locker room, not necessarily the coaching. You bring Rick Tocchet, a Jack Adams Award winner, into Philadelphia. I think the Flyers could be good. I think they could definitely make some noise if all their young guys, develop well. Like maybe Zegras can pull it together. He's only 24, still plenty of room to develop. And they got that young Russian talent, Michkov. They got a bunch of guys, a lot of guys. So they're maybe not a team to watch out for next year, but the year after, I would definitely look out for them as a true playoff contender. I'm definitely nervous for them in the Metro, without a doubt. So this just
Yeah,
obviously they're just adding to their arsenal at this point.
kind of like you said, I was going to mention it. If Philadelphia's young talent like Drysdale and York and Michkov and Cates can take this next step and just be consistent producers, this Flyers team might be able to backdoor themselves into the playoffs next year. I mean,
Yep.
they were close last year and the year before, but um, I think that it's a good move for them. And they drafted, I believe it was Porter Martino in the first round this year.
Yep.
Another big winger
A
that
little
kind of
surprised he
fits the
fell that low.
um, not really. It's probably about where he was supposed to go with six to Philly, so it's probably about where he went.
I thought he'd go top
Um,
four. Some people at the
no,
beginning were even talking about him possibly going top three after the lottery. I think he
no,
got
I,
great
I
value.
think I think he fit right. Definitely a great value pick, but I think he fell right around the area I thought he would have went. But again, he kind of fills the mold of what Philly has been around their entire lifespan as a team. Is just big power guys, and he's gonna fit that role, and he's also got a lot of skill. So I think that was a good pick for them as well. They kind of, in a couple years when he's able to come up, maybe he's up this year, who knows? But yeah, just some good stuff from Philadelphia this weekend. They've had a really good weekend and week overall, I think, in my opinion.
What do you think about this for Anaheim? They've been trading for guys a little older, some interesting contracts. Guys like Truba, and then we just saw with Chris Kreider, and now they get rid of one of their young talents. So, what does this mean for Anaheim? Are you surprised by the return? Um, I mean, they don't look directionless, but I am a little surprised by the past few moves that they've made.
I think the return was very underwhelming, considering what Zegers might have went for. You'd think at least a first round pick or at
Yeah,
least a decent prospect, but no, they only get a second round him in a bottom six forward, which I mean they could use some help in the bottom six. Paling, he'll be a good forward for him, but for Trevor Zegers, it just felt like that it was an underwhelming return. But again, it could be a scenario where we might value Zegers a little higher than front offices do, so that might have been about all they could get. Um, while I don't love the move for them, I understand what they're doing. As I said, they got Carlson, they have um, excuse me, McTavish. They need more wing help. They need bottom six help because their top six is fairly decent when it comes to scoring. And they somewhat addressed that with Roger McQueen. They drafted him 10th. I don't know how he fell that far, but he's got an injury. He's got. I know how he fell. He's got an injury concern with his back. But I don't think that's really going to be an issue. He can play center or wing. He'll probably be more of a winger because of what they have up front. And I think Pat Verbeek's even said like that we're gonna try. They're gonna the expectations playoffs. Where I think that's a bit reaching for something that isn't really obtainable. Um, I you know I think they needed a couple more pieces to kind of be like okay they can contend. Their back end is really young and they're gonna be really good, but they need a couple more pieces. I think that in the floor group to kind of push them.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that at all. I'd be curious to see how Anaheim does with Joel Quenneville as their head coach now. It'll be interesting. But no doubt, I mean, it was definitely an underwhelming return for Zegers. They definitely could have gotten more for him if this were a year ago. But like I said, past couple seasons had some injury concerns. I guess I kind of get it. They probably waited a little bit too late. In the first 3 years he's in the league, he only played 24 games. His rookie season, he had 3 goals, and then you look at the sophomore junior seasons, he had 23 goals both seasons. So no doubt, there's room to develop. I mean, there's room to get better, no doubt. I mean, he's only 24, so
Absolutely.
um, yeah, I like this trade for the Flyers. I think now the biggest concern is probably his attitude, right? I think that was probably
Absolutely.
one of the
Right.
problems in Anaheim, and funny enough, I think Trevor Zegers probably embodies that Philadelphia attitude. So I guess it's kind of a perfect fit if you think about it.
He's a bit of a cocky. Well, not even a bit. He is a cocky guy. He's very cocky, which I guess kind of fills what Philly wants. But yeah, I think his ego and his attitude can be a little bit bigger than it should be. And hopefully Rick Tocchet can kind of fix that. I think that's going to be his biggest thing besides staying healthy is kind of controlling, his ego.
Mm-hmm.
And not trying to pull a Michigan off every other game, which I'm sure that if they try that Tocchet will kill him. But not as bad as Torts, but I'm sure that Tocchet would be like, hey kid, simple stuff, not flashy stuff wins games. So, um, but yeah, I think Zegers could be really good for the Flyers. I said like it's either gonna be they traded for a young guy that didn't develop and they didn't give up much for it, or they traded for a guy that people were kind of giving up on at one team and they thought they moved him. They moved him, he turned into a good player. So that's what I think about Zegers.
What do you think about JJ Paterka? What do you think of this trade, Aiden? I'm dying to hear your
We're
thoughts
not
on
getting to that.
this.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. There's another trade I think we probably should mention here before that. The Edmonton Oilers cap dump Evander Kane to Vancouver for a pick. No retention, nothing. Um,
That's not
Good
too
trade
much.
for Edmonton?
I don't consider that too much of a surprise.
No, it's not. But good trade for the Oilers to get rid of the entire contract to help them re-sign Bouchard and maybe get some
Right.
more speed and youth in this
Yeah.
roster. Vancouver, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Um, they thought that the locker room was bad with JT Miller. Vander Kane's not exactly going to help that, especially since he will not hold back like JT Miller would. Vancouver's in a really, I, I don't know. That's the kind of spot they're in. I don't know what the hell they're doing spot because they got talent, uh, but they're losing Besser. He's probably not coming back. Like they're just in a spot where they're just kind of like, eh. Like they could be good. They're probably gonna be bad. And Patrick Alvin has not done anything to help this team at all. They just you know it kind of looks like they're gonna be about to be in another rebuild, which they just felt like they just came out of.
Right. Yeah. No, I
And
think
I don't
management hasn't done
I
a good
don't
job.
think I don't think trading for a 33-year-old Vander Kane on a $5 million contract is going to help your case at
No,
all. I
not at
mean, he
all.
showed flashes in the playoffs for Edmonton, but he's not going to be that needle mover. I didn't understand that deal for Vancouver. I mean, I guess they had the cap space to take him on, but
Yeah, this one's pretty simple.
I guess maybe Kane wanted to go home because he's from Vancouver, but who knows? I don't think it'll be that great of a trade.
Maybe. No, I don't think
But
so either. I think this is a huge win if you're Edmonton. I think Evander Kane was
absolutely,
already on his way out. And I think they're very lucky to get his entire contract off the books, right? And you trade him to Vancouver. And like you said, what is Vancouver doing? They just got off of a rebuild, and it feels like they're about to hit another one in a couple of years. I don't understand this move. We'll see what happens. But to add to all that, with that being said, the locker room concerns. The whole thing with Vancouver last year was their locker room. How does Evander Kane solve that at all? So yeah, like you said,
it
not sure what
doesn't.
they're doing. I expect Vancouver to be at the bottom of the barrel next season in the West. I don't know how they figure it out. It'll be interesting, but it sucks. I feel bad for their fans, but I don't know when they're gonna get it together. Yeah, we'll see. And yeah, you're right. They are going to lose Besser in free agency, and I'm curious to see where he goes because I don't really know who could sign him. I think it'll be very interesting. But he still has a lot to
Talk
offer.
about
He's
that in a
28
little
years
bit.
old.
'Cause
Yeah. All right.
I I have a team in mind where I think it's pretty. I think I have a team in mind where I think I'm pretty positive on where he's going to go.
How about JJ Paterka?
Well, guys, Aiden was wrong. For once, Frank Cervelli removed his head from his ass. He was right. Um, yeah. So Blockbuster late. What would that have been? That would have been the night before the draft. 2 days before the draft.
Couple
2 days before
days.
the draft. So that would
Yeah,
have
a
been
couple days. Yep.
Wednesday night.
Hmm.
Wednesday night Blockbuster. Um, Buffalo trades JJ Paterka with, I'm assuming, a 5 year, 7.7 per year extension
Which is actually less than I
to
thought he
the
was going to
Utah
get.
Mammoth. Very much less than everybody thought. To the Utah Mammoth for a right shot defensive Michael Kesselring and forward Josh Doan. Um, and initially, when this came out, every single Utah and hockey fan were like, that's it. And every single Sabres fans wanted to go find Kevin Adams and, make his life not very, very happy. Me being one of them. I was very, very pissed off, to say it nicely, um, when this first trade was announced. I'm scrolling Twitter right now to find Jay Fresh's hockey page for Kesselring and Doan because it's going to be a big part of my argument here for why I have flipped opinions on this trade. Because initially I was like, that's it, no first round pick. You didn't swap 4 for 9. Like, what are we doing here? Didn't make any sense at all because you're trading a guy that has 30 goal potential. Everybody's saying he's a 30 goal scorer. He's not scored 30. The highest he scored was 2 years ago, and that was 28. He's not a 30 goal scorer yet. In his best career year, JJ Paterka did. So on paper, you get a 23-year-old guy. He's gonna be good. Um, I'll get Sean's thoughts here before I kind of go into my tangent and why I think this trade is actually not as bad for the Sabres as everybody's making it out to be.
So Kesselring is good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he is a great defenseman. He's only 25, and obviously there's still room to grow. Um, but essentially, what they did, look, Jack Doan means nothing. I'm sorry, solid bottom six guy, whatever. He's not going to move the needle. But now I look at this as a Michael Kesselring, JJ Paterka swap, and in my opinion, I feel as if that's pretty lopsided. They should have gotten some draft capital in return. That's just my opinion. I think you think otherwise, but they really should have gotten some draft capital in return or another player. I think once again, Kevin Adams strikes again. I feel bad for the fans. I'm sorry, Aiden. I don't know how you do it. I think they got lowballed. I really do. I can't. First of all, I was just busting your chops the other week about them trading Paterka. I didn't think they'd actually do it. And then I saw this return and I thought, oh my gosh, how does he put up with this every single year? It's unbelievable. I feel bad for the fans. I really do. But I'll let you say your piece on it. But I think they got lowballed. I just a Kesselring Paterka swap just doesn't seem fair. No doubt Kesselring is good, but Paterka's better at his position. And Jack Doan doesn't really move the needle at all. They should have gotten some draft capital or another player. That's just what I think. But I'll let you finish up with what you want to say.
Well, I really think you're underestimating Josh Doan in this deal.
Oops.
Um, I think that I definitely agree, and that's been the consensus among everybody, is that they probably should have gotten a draft pick, probably swap first. If they would have swapped 4 or 9, would have been a lot better. With that being said, they wouldn't have gotten the player I wanted to get in the draft, which is who they ended up drafting was Radim Murka, which they needed more defense help. They got that with their first 2 picks, which I think that they did draft wise. I think for what they needed, they really did a good job. They gained some height in this blue line. Like their average height on their blue line now is 6'2", roughly. They're taking the Florida Panthers model of we're going to have tall guys that play good defense or play a decent two-way game, and we're just going to murder you to death, which I think is a decent strategy. I'm going to start with Doan because he's the piece in this deal that I think is not going to get enough love. His underlying metrics with Utah last year were very, very good. He is very high motor, very good forecheck, very good defensively. What has been the biggest issue with Buffalo the last 5 years of this run they've had this core? Defense, defense, defense. Everybody knows this team can score. This team can score. Even without Paterka, they're still going to be top 10 in the league in scoring next year. Book it. Because I think that Jack Quinn, and he needs to, will have a better season than he had last year. I think the scoring touch came back a little bit in the second half. I think they are comfortable enough moving him up into the top 6 if need be to replace that production. But I think Josh Stone's not getting enough credit here. He's still 23, but if he can kind of be a high motor forecheck guy that plays good defense and scores 10, 20 goals, 10 to 15 goals, 30 points a year, phenomenal for Buffalo. I think he's a really underrated piece of this deal. I think he's still got time to grow. He hasn't played very much for Utah in the NHL, but when he has played on the fourth line, he's been good. Um, and the thing with and my argument with Kesselring is he's 6'5". Buffalo needed some size in this back end. They needed a right shot partner for power. Perfect for him. He's a two-way guy. He's very fast, very hard shot. He's going to open up the ice for Owen Power and take some of the stress of Owen Power playing with crappy defensive partners off of him, which means that defense score is only going to get better as Owen Power finally, hopefully, takes that step of becoming that top pick defenseman that they projected him to be. And Kesselring, I think now that he's going to have some actual playing time, he'll be a lot better than he was number wise, like the eye test. Because he's now going to have a more raised role. Whereas in Utah, he was playing bottom 6 minutes. He's going to be playing top 4 second pair minutes most likely. So I don't think this trade is as bad as you think it is, but obviously Buffalo got the short end of the stick. They gave up the best player, but I think if you look at it, and I think as the season will go on, it'll show that this deal is going to be fairly even to what each team needed. Like this trade addresses needs for Buffalo, and that's kind of the goal here with what Kevin Adams was trying to do. They were absolutely trying to trade JJ Paterka for a right shot defenseman, and they found that. And they found a young guy that plays a better defensive game, which is what they needed. But on the flip side, now we're talking about JJ, young, good scorer. The problem with him is, and it showed a lot, most of his points last year came off the rush, and most of his points last year came playing with who? Tage Thompson, who is Buffalo's best player up front in the forward core. When he was playing with other guys that aren't necessarily as prolific as offensive players with him, he struggled. And he shot a really high shooting percentage, which is a stat that, can make or break a player. If his shooting percentage goes way down next year, he might not be as good as a player as he was. And he loves to net play defense. He is very offensively rush driven. He's not a great defender. And it's another guy for Utah. I mean, they need more scoring help, but a lot of people thought they needed to get bigger. He's not a big winger. He doesn't play big. He's got a little bit of bite to him, but like not enough to be like offset. But I mean, for Utah, I guess it makes sense because they need more scoring. And that'll give them more scoring, at least in theory. On paper, it will. But again, it's one of those trades where y'all kind of laughed at Buffalo for trading a top prospect in Matt Savoy for Ryan McLeod, and that turned out that Buffalo won that trade tenfold. So we'll see. Only time will tell when the season comes up. But right now, I'd say it's a lot more even than people are making it out to be. And that's not even Sabres fan bias. That's not copium and hopium that, man, maybe Buffalo actually found one. That's like general looking at it from all angles. And I think that a lot of people are just shitting on it because, Buffalo, and it looks bad. Or actually, in reality, a lot of people that have played the NHL, a lot of analysts that I kind of follow that have some kind of rep that I think I could take words for that usually write on stuff, are saying this is a pretty good deal for Buffalo as well.
All right, no disagreements. Well said. But moving on to the Charlie Coyle trade, Charlie Coyle gets moved to Columbus after he just was acquired at the deadline by Colorado. Well, I'll tell you this, Columbus, I think things are looking up for Columbus. I'll tell you that right now. I really do think they're going to be good down the stretch next season. It might take a little bit of time, but I'm telling you, if they make a push like they did this season to get into the playoffs, I think Columbus is actually, I think they look pretty good, and I think they could probably make the playoffs next year if the Metro and the Atlantic are as bad as they are, in my opinion.
I'm gonna keep it a buck. This is an absolute awful trade for the Blue Jackets. This is terrible.
They may have
Colorado,
overpaid, but I think Charlie Coyle is still a good player.
Colorado essentially just offloaded $7 million or pretty much almost $8 million of cap and did not have to give up a sweetener. Columbus gave up the sweetener and Gavin Brindley, who I think could be a really good player in the top 9 for Columbus or Colorado. And they get a third and a second. I think it's the initial second a couple years from now. Miles Wood kind of hit his expiration date. He's good, but like Colorado's got a lot of guys like him, so they didn't really need him. And Charlie Coyle was not great last year with Colorado. He just was not good. And I think that they've got guys in their system that they can kind of plug and play that fill up for that. And they free up almost $8 million in cap. which I think is huge. And for Columbus, yeah, they get some veteran experience, they get some bottom six help, but it's just a weird trade for me. I don't like it for them. I really don't. Um,
For a win now
I
team, I
love.
think they're banking on the fact that they know they can make the playoffs next
Are they
year,
a
and
win now team though?
I think they are with the push that they made last season. I think they know they are. Um,
Okay, I don't want to be that guy, but how much of that was based off we just lost Johnny Gaudreau? I think a lot of that could be sparked by that. I think they
I
regress
disagree.
this
I
year.
think you would have seen that at the beginning of the season. That was we saw them turn it on at the end of the season. I think that's what
What?
sets that
But
apart.
here's my thing: they're losing Provorov, so who's your replacement for Provorov? And especially in a free agent class, it's not very strong in the defense column. Like you're not replacing a left-handed defenseman with Ekblad, and he wouldn't go to Columbus even if he wanted to.
Don't get me wrong. I don't like what they gave up, but I think if you look at it from Colorado's standpoint, yeah, it's an absolute win. But then I look at Columbus, who's also in their eyes, maybe they're a win now team. I think it's a solid addition to the bottom six. If he plays like he did in Colorado, then no, maybe not. But if he plays like he did the past like 4 seasons in Boston, yeah, I do think that's a solid addition.
I
But
agree,
only time will tell.
but
But hopefully, maybe I think it is an overpay, but I think for the player you're getting, I think it's a good win now type of move. But no, I do see
um,
what you're saying.
I, I, I mean, and it's not. I guess from a stance that I guess Columbus is saying it's not really a risk. He's a free agent after next year, so it's not like you're entitled to have Charlie Coyle after a year, after this year. But again, I don't like this for Columbus. Colorado just, I think that's an A+ win easy because now Colorado now has the cap stability to go either re-sign Marty Necas or go find guys in free agency that kind of help this team, not get knocked out in the first round by Dallas again
Yeah.
or whoever else they may play. Um, but Colorado's got the team. They just got to find the depth pieces like they did in 22 to push this team to get back to that Cup final.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. If you have anything else to add, moving on to the John Gibson trade.
No, no, no,
So
you're forgetting one big deal that happened before that.
I'm just going on. I mean, I'm not going by like order. I'm just going by like any trade. Which trade do you
Um,
want to talk about?
I want to talk about Noah Dobson going to Montreal.
Okay, we can talk about
Um,
Dobson.
I want to talk about Dobson. So Montreal gets Noah Dobson with a 8-year, $9.5 million extension or $9.5 million per extension in place. For Emil Heineman and 2 first-round picks. They were back-to-back picks, I believe, 17 and 18, or excuse me, 16 and 17, which they used to draft. I know Kevin Shaw, or Kashawn Aitchison was the second pick, and Victor Eklund, I believe, was the first pick they used. A really good value for them there with both those picks. A lot of people thought they were going to use both those picks to trade up and get James Higgins. That did not happen. He fell to 7, surprisingly, where Boston took him. But this deal, I think, is if depending on how you want to look at it, it could be very, very good for both teams. Obviously, it's good right now for the Islanders. They finally resupply that prospect pool, and they needed it terribly. And they got a couple really good prospects for value with those 2 first-round picks they acquire. Emil Heineman is a very good bottom six piece. He's younger, he's fast, very good defensively. I think he'll be a nice piece for that bottom six. But giving up Noah Dobson, who was probably your best right shot defenseman there, is a bit steep. But obviously, I don't think the Islanders thought he was worth the 10 million, 9.5 to $10 million he wanted. He had one really good year 2 years ago in 23, but he really regressed last year. And I think with how much he was asking for with a guy that's 25 that maybe ticky tack defensively, that had a not so great year last year, I don't think they really were committed to giving him 9.5 per year. And Montreal, this makes a ton of sense because they need to get some more experience in this back end, and they needed to find that true top 4 piece with their youth to put alongside Lane Hudson. They do that in Dobson. I think this could be a really good deal for both teams, but with Dobson, we'll see if this contract is more like a Seth Jones or if it'll pan out and be like a really nice contract for them. Time will tell.
I think this is huge for Montreal. They must be banking on Dobson having a season like he had obviously the year before, last season.
100%.
If that does happen, huge win. He's worth the money. If that doesn't happen, swing and a miss. It's as simple as that. And I look at the Islanders. I don't know what to think about the Islanders because I don't see them competing next season. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think you're right. They probably looked at the asking price and thought, maybe after the season he just had, he's not worth the 10 million. But for an up and coming team like the Canadians, maybe this was a risk worth taking. Maybe you can bank on a
Absolutely, I
guy like
agree.
Dobson,
Especially,
and then he could be
especially
your
shot.
defenseman going down the line.
Yeah, especially after making a shot playoff, appearance. And Montreal knows that they have an opportunity to capitalize on something here, and they did. So good for the Canadians. I hate it as a Sabres fan because Dobson was a guy I was kind of looking for, but with that price tag, it's a little expensive for what I want to pay. Um, so I think it was a good deal for Montreal, gauging that they've got a lot of youth and they're, contract wise or cap space, they kind of are on the lower end of the spectrum because a lot of their guys are young and on lower level deals. Um, so I like it for Montreal. Again, like if it doesn't work, I'm sure that you could find somebody that'll take the contract in the next 2 years. I mean, Chicago got a good return for Seth Jones, and that contract was considered one of the worst in hockey for a long time. So, um,
Yeah, and I think it worked out for Florida too.
absolutely, they won a couple. Seth Jones, he was a really good player for him. He turned back into being that Seth Jones steady two-way defenseman that he was. And it kind of gives them the option to not maybe re-sign Aaron Ekblad because Seth Jones showed that he can be the guy
Yep.
on that right side alongside Forsling. Um, but yeah, it's a good deal for Montreal. It's a good deal for the Islanders too because they need some top tier high end prospects and they finally have that now. Um, with the 2 draft picks they had in the first round.
Yeah, yeah. I like the move. What trade would you like to talk about next?
We can talk about John Gibson now. I think that's a pretty big deal for Detroit. They finally show some life.
So you called it as kind of a wild card at the deadline, and it didn't happen at the deadline, but 3 months later, or a few months later, you spoke it into existence. John Gibson plays for the Red Wings now, and I can tell you this: if he has a season like he did last season, and he doesn't have any, setbacks like he had like the past couple seasons before this season, I think Detroit finally has their goalie. I really like this move for Detroit, and I wish they'd done this at the deadline. I don't know why they waited till the offseason to do it, but hopefully they have their goalie of the future now.
I I said I thought it made a ton of sense for John Gibson to go to um, Detroit. They needed a goaltender badly, and they a little late, but they got him. They traded Peter Mrazek in a second next year and a fourth round pick this year to get him. Mrazek's going to be the backup to Dostal, and it makes sense because Anaheim has been shopping him for a while. Lucas Dostal broke out last year. He showed he was the one. John Gibson, big contract. Um, and Detroit needed a starter, and I think it's going to help them a lot. Now they still got some question marks in the forward and defense that they need to address. But it's a step in the right direction for Detroit. They finally get a starting goaltender that you can rely on. Hopefully, um, yeah, it's a good trade for Detroit, and then for Anaheim, it's a good trade too because you clear out a couple $1 million in cap. You finally let your young goaltender Lucas Dostal have the reins, and um, you don't have to worry about. You get a fairly cheap and decent backfill from Peter Mrazek, so I think it's a good trade for both teams.
Yes, but Detroit shouldn't be done. Now they have their goalie, right? They
No,
got their guy. They got to add someone on the top six. Someone to carry this team. They need someone.
if if I am Detroit, I am throwing a bag of wads, a bank truck at Nikolai Ehlers when he hits the open market.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I think
Nikolai
it's a good
Ehlers
idea.
would fit very well in that top six. Along, like if you put him alongside Larkin and Raymond, that might be one of the scariest top lines in the league with so much speed and so much skill in that top line. And then having the ability to move to break it down to the second line would do them wonders. Um, but yeah, they got some issues in the top six. They're just in the forward grouping in general and in the defense that they need to address.
Yeah.
Terribly,
Yeah, no, I don't doubt
terribly
it.
need to address it.
I think there's one more trade we can talk about. The Spence trade.
We can talk about that. I'll just briefly mention that Buffalo Sabres acquired Connor Timmins and a Isaac Bellevue, but he's a he's gonna be a minor league guy for Connor Clifton and second round pick this year. Good cap dump. I think that Timmins will be good for Buffalo. The bottom of 60s better than Clifton, so I think it's a good move for Buffalo. A little bit of a little steep with a second round pick, but again, league draft class, it's gonna amount to nothing. So good move for them. Clear a little bit of cap as well. But yeah, Jordan Spence, a guy that's been really rumored to be traded to a lot of places. Ottawa gets a really good deal for him, in my opinion. They trade a third and a sixth, and a third round pick this year and a sixth rounder next year for Jordan Spence. Good contract. He's a little bit on the shorter side as a defenseman, but a really talented right shot guy that'll
Mm-hmm.
finally get a chance to, shine in the top four for Ottawa. He didn't have the opportunity in LA as they had Clark and Doughty kind of taking up those spots and Anderson and Gavrikov on the left side. I think it's a good trade for the Senators and LA. I mean, just didn't have a spot for him. So I guess if this was the best they could get for him, it seems a little underwhelming, but um, It's a great deal for Ottawa. I think he's going to bring some much needed offense to this back end, especially with the Schwat kind of took a step back. And it looks like Jake Sanderson is kind of their number one now when it comes to finding offense. They got some more youth in this back end, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think he'll be a pretty good, decent offensive scorer. His numbers were really good for the minutes that he played. But yeah, I think it's a very good deal for Ottawa, and they kind of continue to add here to this team that made the playoffs last year. That they're staying aggressive, which is good for them.
I love this trade for Ottawa. A little bit of an underwhelming return for LA, but like you said, probably the odd man out. They're going to get rid of him. Whether or not there's a better deal out there for him, who knows? But you look at Ottawa, and they only add to their youth. They're only getting better, and I think just like we mentioned with Montreal, those two wildcard teams next year. Those are two teams to really look out for next year. They're going to be scary. They're young. They're only getting better. I love the direction they're heading, and Ottawa only adds to their defensive talent with Jordan Spence. So I really like this trade for Ottawa. Now we get into the fun things. John Tavares signed an extension. He'll be staying in Toronto. Not much to say there. I guess that was kind of expected. He got more than I
Good
thought he was.
contract.
I was going to say he got more than I thought, but I think a lot of people would have been surprised had Tavares left his favorite hockey team for life in the Toronto Maple Leafs, regardless of how bad they are.
It's a good deal for both teams. Cheap contract for Toronto leaves them open to signing other guys. And Tavares gets to stay in Toronto, and he's still going to be a good player even into his twilight years, and on 4 years. That's a good contract for them. I think it's good for both sides.
And then this was one we were anticipating. Absolute no-brainer. Sam Bennett stays in Florida. Yeah, I mean, not much to say about Sam Bennett. We already talked about him last week, glazing him as we should have. He's been amazing for Florida, amazing addition. And I'm kicking rocks if I'm Calgary. I'm kicking the floor. That's unfortunate, but now we get.
But two.
I was gonna say,
Guys,
yeah, we didn't
they
even talk
traded.
about Kachuk. Yeah, unbelievable. And people thought Calgary won that trade by a lot, but it turns out it was the other way around. I guess they didn't give up enough
No.
to get Kachuk. Now we move on to the fun things because NHL free agency starts this week, and it may not be the most talented class, but there are still a lot of people to talk about. Starting with the hottest commodity, number one on everyone's list. That's Mitch Marner. He's on his way out of Toronto.
And he's going straight to Vegas.
That was announced a couple weeks ago. He was done in Toronto. And I said at the deadline that be on the lookout for Vegas to acquire Mitch Marner because it seems like they always do this. They didn't acquire him at the deadline, but it really looks like they're the front runners right now for Mitch Marner, and this doesn't really surprise me at all. They're known for doing this. They're known for always getting the hot commodities. They always find a way somehow. I think it's because of the way the CBA is formed right now. But I think once the CBA is fixed, and they don't mess with all with like the LTIR thing anymore. Not that they're using the LTIR, but still, they always find a way somehow to acquire these big names. I'm I'm not mad at it, but man, Vegas does such a good job of finding these loopholes, and it's very, very, very impressive. People can be mad at Vegas all they want, but I got to tell you, I'm really impressed. I'm not mad at them. I think I'd be more mad at them if they'd beat the Caps in 2018, but that didn't happen. So I'm really, really, really impressed with what they've done and how they built this team up to where they are now. I'd be curious to see if Mitch Marner really moves the needle for them in the playoffs, though, if they do acquire him. That is. And the whole tampering situation, we'll see what happens there. If they even file for tampering. But here's the thing. Does Mitch Marner really move the needle more so than Nick Waugh would, or even, any other guy that they would trade? I'm really interested to see if he does get traded to Vegas. Is this even a good trade to begin with?
Well, nothing's confirmed yet, and Toronto already threw the waiver out at Vegas. Like, hey, if you guys do sign Mitch, we're throwing a tampering waiver at you.
Yes. Yep.
So that might lean it. My biggest issue right now is that Vegas doesn't have the cap space to do this deal. It's being reported like 4 years, $12 million. They don't have $12 million cap to get him.
Yeah, someone's on the way out.
Which means one of Nick Hague, Nick Waugh, or Tomas Hertl are going to have to be going out here. Will it help them in the regular season? Most likely. Marner's not going to be under as big of a spotlight. When it comes to the playoffs, though, I don't know. I think if you look at it logistically, it should, because he's no longer in he's going to be in a major market, but he's not going to be like in the New York of hockey. He's not going to be looked upon along with a microscope anymore. And he's not going to be the guy that's going to be relied upon to get all the goals and the points for Vegas like he was in Toronto. Like he's a part of a bigger whole because they can rely on Barbashev, they can rely on Pavel Defeyev. I forgot to say his name. Sorry, guys. Dorofeyev. There it is. Him.
Him.
Can't speak today. Him. Eichel, Stone when healthy. Shea Theodore's good in the back end. Hannafin's good in the back end. Depending on who they keep, if they keep Tomas Hertl, another guy you can rely on for points. Um, so I wouldn't think that would be under so much pressure to perform, and I think that's the biggest reason why he's not performing in the playoffs. He's under the expectation and so much pressure that he has to perform, so he's not doing it, and it's amplified because he's playing in Toronto, a team that has not had success since 1967. So I think that he probably would be a needle mover in the playoffs, especially if he goes to Vegas, because he's not going to be looked upon to be the guy. Just kind of like Jack was in Vegas. He was looked upon to be the guy in Buffalo, wasn't that? Went to Vegas and has become a great player. Like he was already a good player in Buffalo, but he's been better. I think the same thing would happen with Mitch Marner.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. No argument. I think that could be the case. The only thing I'd say is let's wait and find out. Because Nick Waugh hasn't been bad in the playoffs at all for Vegas either. And if they move him to Toronto, my thing is like, okay, if Mitch Marner isn't that good in the playoffs, if he's like the exact same as he was in Toronto, what the heck was the point of this deal? But only time will tell. I'd be curious to see what actually happens. I cannot believe Mitch Marner actually might go to Vegas. I said at the deadline, and I can't believe it might actually happen. Vegas always finds a way to do it. It's impressive, and I can't blame them. They're just taking advantage of the league, and it's Elliot Freeman announced a couple hours ago before we started the show that Pietrangelo is going to be out for at least all of next season.
Yep.
They might use it. They might take advantage of the LTIR again. We'll see
Maybe.
what happens. He has 2 years left on his deal, including next year. So what they do with him after next year, I don't know. It's to be determined. But he's 35. A lot of injury concerns. Obviously aging. So we'll see what happens. But man, hate Vegas all you want, but they know what they're doing, man. They know what they're doing.
They do.
Any other free agents that you want to talk about next?
I want to talk about Nick Ehlers next. He is going to test the open market. He told Winnipeg that I think a couple weeks ago he was going to test out the open market. He's
Yep.
not going to go back to Winnipeg. I could see Nikolai Ehlers very easily going to Carolina. They need a top six winger. They need to inject a little bit of speed into this group, and that's exactly what Nick Ehlers would do. I think he'd be a good fit, not a great fit because he's still got some defensive issues to his game. But I think that his offensive ability would be enough to outweigh those concerns. I think he'd be a good fit in Carolina. I don't really. Maybe Toronto as well could be a good fit for him, but I don't know how much ambition he wants to go to that market. But I think those are a couple teams I'd watch out for Nick Ehlers. He's gonna be the second most coveted guy in this class. He's gonna get paid a lot of money.
In my opinion, this one is written all over the board. I think Ehlers to Carolina is unfortunately a done deal. I feel like that's definitely going to happen. Now that Carolina probably not going to get Marner, pivot their way to the next guy. They need a good free agent to sign to put them over the edge. Ehlers is that next guy. I think they go all in for Ehlers, and I think Ehlers to Carolina is probably going to be their best bet. I think that's what they end up doing. So if I had to put money on one thing, it's Ehlers to Carolina. I think that one is definitely set in stone. People talk about Washington. Washington has no money to do it. They're not going to sign him. But yeah, Ehlers to Carolina just seems like the most obvious choice for me. How about next? Want to talk about Brock Besser?
Yeah, let's talk about Brock Besser. I'm pretty certain he's going to go to Minnesota.
Minnesota. Oh, wow.
Especially since they cleared out some cap. They traded Freddie Gaudreau to Seattle, who I made fun of for trading for more middle six wingers. They just bought out Joe Veleno today. So that Andre Burakovsky trade is caca. So they got nothing for Andre Burakovsky.
Yeah, all that for that.
I thought it was dumb when it happened. It's even more dumb now. Jason Botterill's a blithering idiot. Does not address the need of defensemen in the draft. They decided to go another center, which they are very strong at. He's an idiot. Always will be. But Brock Besser is going to go to Minnesota. I think he's from the Minnesota area. But it's written in stone because they need a scoring winger and they need somebody to bring some juice to that top six. Besser will do that. They put him right alongside Eriksson Ek. I think it could be a really good second line. Especially with Zuccarello getting older But he's been good for them, even though he's kind of hit that age where you can see guys drop off. But I think Besser would be a good fit for Minnesota. I think that's probably the most logical destination for him. Um, so I think that Besser's going to go into Minnesota. I think that's a pretty safe bet on that one.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be very interesting because I think Brock Besser still has a lot to offer, especially for any playoff team. He's only 28. You know, not the youngest, not the oldest either. It's somewhere right in the middle. So I think anybody who signs him could probably get a good 3, maybe even 4 years out of him, like in his prime. He had 50 points last season, 73 before that, with 40 goals. So no doubt, whoever signs him, I don't know if I break the bank for him, but no doubt you're getting a
Mm.
good player in Brock Besser without a doubt. So I'd be curious to see who signs him. You said Minnesota. Wouldn't doubt it. I think that'd be very cool to see, and I'd like to see Minnesota make some kind of playoff push next season because I think they do have the team to do it, and it might be now or never. Um, but
Oh, they got a lot of cap space opening up, and they're still a really young team. As long as they can get Kaprizov signed next year, I think there's this Minnesota
right,
team could be very, really,
yeah,
really contenders. Like, could be like a really consistent playoff team in the next few years.
because I'm telling you, once they sign Kaprizov, man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to re-sign all those young guys, and we'll see what they do. I'd be curious to see the direction they go, but yeah, that's why I think their window isn't closing. But once they sign Kaprizov, man, it's gonna be tough to stay competitive and re-sign all their guys. They're gonna be expensive, especially with the cap going up. They really are. What do you want to talk about next? How about Brad Marchand? I'd be curious to see where he goes.
Do we have to?
Do we have to? What do you want
No,
to talk
he's
about
gonna get
next?
4 year. He's gonna get 4 years from Florida and reside there. He's not going anywhere. Whoever, there's a different Panther I do want to talk about, and he is not resigning in Florida. That's Aaron Ekblad. He's gonna be gone. LA. It was reported today that them and Carolina or them and Florida are very far apart, which means he's probably gonna hit the open market. They just don't have enough cap space to keep all three of the big names. And I think with Florida, their kind of motto is we're gonna, kind of cycle defensemen in and out, and they've been pretty good at consistently doing that. Um, Akblad, there's a few suitors for him. I could see that if Vegas somehow, if they don't land Marner and they find a way that Petrangelo's done, I could see them maybe going after Akblad, to fill that top pair right defensive spot. Um, I could see that. Um, Detroit could use him. Another guy that could use him. They need some top six. They need some top four help, especially on that right side, to help out Mort Sider a little bit. And Ekblad would be a great veteran there with some playoff and cup experience that they need terribly. I don't know if you've got any other suitors that you could see him going to.
Yeah, I like the Vegas
Outside of,
call, but you say Brad Marchand set in stone. I don't think so at all. I think he has other
I think
suitors, and I
so.
don't think he wants to. I mean, sure, I'm sure he'd love to re-sign in Florida, but I mean, who's to say he's going to re-sign for 4 years? The dude's already 37. I mean, I'm sure he could definitely sign with other teams. I don't think that's set in stone at all. I think he definitely entertains some other people. So I don't think Brad Marchand of Florida is set in stone at all. I think he could definitely sign with anybody he wants. He already won a cup with them. I mean, maybe run it back, but we'll see.
He wants to
Um,
stay in Florida, and I don't think he really wants to go anywhere else in Florida. So I feel like he's at the stage of his career where he wants to win cups, and there's going to be no better place to do it than Florida because that team is just stacked and they're ready to compete for the next 10 years. I
yeah,
don't think he goes anywhere else. Like maybe outside chance he goes to Toronto,
yeah, that's
but
what I'm
I
saying.
highly
Yeah,
doubt that
I mean,
happening.
I think that's a
I highly
possibility.
doubt
I
that.
think it's a possibility. I think it's really, I think it's real. Toronto needs a guy like him, someone to perform
They
in the
do.
playoffs. Who's
They
next?
do.
Anybody you have in mind?
I think the last one we probably should talk about is the other the big defense kind of free agent. That's Ivan Provorov. I think LA Kings are a good fit for him. They're going to lose Gabrikov. I know they don't want to, but it seems like they're going to lose Gabrikov, and it looks like he's going to be possibly rumored to the Rangers. I think that's kind of the big suitor for them so far is New York. But I think that Provorov will be a good replacement for him. Kind of similar. They're both kind of. I mean, Gabrikov's more of a defensive guy. Provorov's more offensive, but um, I think Provorov will be a good piece for the Kings. Um, they're gonna need another big left shot defenseman. When Gabrikov leaves, if they can't resign him, but I think he would fit that mold.
Yeah, Provorov is this kind of wild card. I can see him really going anywhere. Like, I don't think there's one team that's like really set in stone for him to go to. Like, I can see him taking offers from anyone, as long as he gets his back. I think that's his priority. I'd be really curious to see where he goes. He
He's gonna
obviously
get
has a lot to
paid.
offer. What'd you say?
He's gonna get paid.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get paid. Where that is, I don't know, but it'll be interesting. That's one guy that I have circled because I'd really like to see where he goes. It's gonna be interesting. But any restricted free agents that you can think of, that could possibly be moved. Anybody that sticks out that may not re-sign or get traded.
Um, there are two defenders, but I think that one will get traded. The other one I'm not so sure about. He's been in talks, but I I don't see this that happen. The one that for sure is going to be on the move, even though Kevin Adams says otherwise, that they're not, completely fully in trading them, but with what they did and the trade market the last few days kind of signals otherwise. Is Bowen Byram, 24-year-old defenseman, a left shot. He's going to want at least $9.5 million. Again, I'm not comfortable paying a guy that much money that's been bad outside of playing with the top five defender in the NHL. Um, I think Byron's going to be on the move, and the rumored spots I think that he could possibly go is maybe LA, as I mentioned. They're in the need for a left shot defenseman. Vancouver's another spot. Vegas could be a place as well, and St. Louis. More so hoping St. Louis because they got a little bit. Or Vegas because there's some players that, as a Sabres fan, I would really like. I'd love to get Jordan Kyrou. That's pretty outlandish, but if St. Louis is desperate enough, then they could do it. Especially if Buffalo throws in some prospects, which they have plenty of forward prospects to throw in. For Vegas, I'd love to get Barbashev or Dorfadev. Both of them would be really good for the top six. Either of those I'd be happy with. Maybe even Nick Hague could throw in there, but again, as I said, like they're kind of in a spot where they kind of had their defense solidified. As much as I'd love to get another right shot guy in the top six, I feel like that Bernard Docker or Timmins could be enough of a defense partner for Dowling just to be like, okay, you're fine, whatever. But I think Byram's 100% getting dealt. Another team I'd say I'd be okay with, but I doubt it happens. But we'll see. Pittsburgh kind of, if they get traded to Pittsburgh, I'd like to see Brian Rustin return as a part of the package, not just the full trade. I think Byram is 100% new. The other guy I think maybe could be because he's been rumored in talks. Is Keandre Miller for the Rangers. He's
I was going to
25.
mention.
25 left shot defenseman, and I think he could be on the move. I'll let Sean take this one since you're kind of more on this one than maybe I would be.
Well, I don't think the Rangers would be smart in letting Miller go. I know he didn't have the best of seasons last year, but no doubt he is talented. Still room to grow. I think it was just a Laviolette thing. I don't know. Let's see how he does with Mike Sullivan. I think Keandre Miller turns it around. I think the Rangers should
That
give him
has
one
been
more
your
shot.
narrative.
I really do think Peter Laviolette was a huge problem in New York. I'm telling you, they're going to turn it around now that they have a good head coach. And they have young pieces too. I'm telling you, the Rangers will be a good team next season with a good head coach. I'm telling you, Peter Laviolette was the problem. You saw it with the Capitals. Even the Predators, once Laviolette moved, I know they weren't the best, but they certainly did get a little bit better. And then looking at New York, right? So Keandre Miller, if he resigns, not sure what his cap number is going to be. Not sure how expensive he's going to be. Obviously, they probably should entertain offers, but I think when it's all said and done, Keandre Miller stays a Ranger. For how much, I don't know. We'll see. But I would be surprised if Keandre Miller goes on the move. And the last guy we got to talk about, Bouchard. Don't know if he's really going anywhere.
No, he's gonna get a nice 8-year, $10 million per year extension. I think, especially Edmonton moving out cap. That's
I
kind
was
of what
going
it
to
looks
say,
like.
the Evander Kane trade really kind of told us all that Bouchard's probably going to stay in Edmonton.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what's gonna happen. He's gonna get an 8-year deal, $10 million per. It'll be a decent contract for the Oilers. I think his defensive game is still much to be desired, but he's their best defenseman, and they need to keep him. So it'd be a good deal for the Oilers.
Yeah, 100%. All right, want to do player of the day?
I gotta find one, but before that, I'm gonna say Ryan James. If we ever make merch, that Sean phrase about Pierre Laviolette better be the first shirt. He says, "Swear to God,"
yes.
He says it every single episode.
I'll wear
Every
that shirt
single
every
episode,
day,
says,
and it's true.
it's a Laviolette thing. It's a Laviolette problem.
It is true. I don't know what it is about Peter
It's
Laviolette and young guys, but man, they
it's
seem to take a total nosedive when he's the head coach.
it's a
I
Peter
don't know if I'm
Laviolette
wrong.
problem.
I mean, yeah, I
It's a
wouldn't doubt
Peter
it. I really
Laviolette
don't doubt it
problem.
at all.
I don't know, man.
There's a
It's
reason
just,
why he hasn't been picked up. No one wants him. Kills the
yeah, but
development
they
of all
can't.
these young guys.
I mean, even under David Quinn, though, when they had those years, they were kind of, and even and Gerard Gallant, they were kind of just tire spinning.
Yeah, hopefully Mike
I don't
Sullivan
know.
turns him around. I think Mike Sullivan was a good hire. I still think the Rangers are going to be scary next year.
Well,
They have
I
the talent to do
agree.
it.
I think that he's 100% a great hire. I mean,
We'll see what
oh,
happens. I got my guy for you. I'm ready. I'm spinning this one out. You can find a
oh.
guy while I do my guy because I feel like I'm gonna get you on this one. Hopefully, I don't know.
Seems like there we go. I got my guy. I just got to find this Taki reference page. There he is. I got him. This was off the top of my head, so he played for a few teams, so hopefully it throws you off a little bit.
All right, nice. All right. So my guy was drafted first overall. Oh, not first overall. He was
I was
drafted
gonna say,
15th
okay, that's
overall.
easy.
He was drafted 15th overall in 2010 by the Kings. Okay. He was traded to Calgary by Los Angeles for a conditional pick in the 2021 NHL draft. Okay. He
Yeah.
signed with Winnipeg in 2020, and then he signed with Boston in 2021, and then he signed in Vancouver in 2024. He currently plays for the Canucks.
So he was drafted by LA. And what year was he drafted?
2010.
So he's an older guy. So he played with the Kings for a long time.
Uh, 4.5 seasons.
So he was in the
Yeah.
AHL for a while.
Looks like it. Yeah.
So he made his debut in like 14, so right around the Cup years. Then he went to Calgary. Traded to Calgary for a conditional pick, which makes me assume he was a trade deadline guy. And then he went to Boston after LA, and then to Vancouver right now.
So no. He went to, yeah. He got traded to Calgary, and then after his time in Calgary, he signed with Winnipeg in 2020, and then he
And
signed
then he
with
went.
Boston. Was with Boston for 3 years. Signed with Vancouver last year.
The one I would think of would have been Zadorov, but the teams are flipped in Buffalo and
Man, I think I
Colorado.
got you. I thought you were gonna get this one, but I may have got you.
He's a defender, right? Well,
Yes.
what position does he play? Defenseman.
Yep, he's a defenseman.
It's in Vancouver.
I think he'll get it. I think you're gonna get it.
Trying to think. Let's see. LA defenseman. Wait a minute. I know who this is. Oh my god. I think I know who. Yeah. Is this Derek Forbort?
Yes, Derek Forbort. You got it.
Wow.
You got it.
My,
Took all the brain power, but I'm glad I stumped you a
it
little
took
bit.
me. I'm like,
I was
wait
gonna
a
say
minute.
he's definitely gonna get it at some point, but
He was a first round pick.
yeah, he was
Wow.
15th overall in 15th overall. Yeah, 15th overall in 2010 by the Kings.
Unfortunately, we have lost camera footage for this, so it's okay. Okay, you're a guy.
Oh man.
Drafted in the 95th overall, third round by Detroit in 2002 entry draft. He made his NHL debut with Detroit in 2005-06, where he played with the Red Wings until 2013. He was signed by Tampa in 2013-14, where he played up until 2016-17, where he was traded to the Philadelphia Flyers. Played in Philly for 2 years. He signed with the Islanders for a year in 2018-19, and he returned home to the Detroit Red Wings where he would finish his NHL career in 2020-2021. He's got 530 points in 1,056 games. He's a forward. He's a centerman specifically. Really underrated guy.
Really underrated guy. Wait, okay, so when did he retire?
2001. Or, sorry, 2021. Good lord.
2001.
He was drafted in 22. Oh, Lord, hang on. He was drafted in 02 by Detroit. Made his NHL debut in 2005. Retired in 2021.
Okay. Okay, after Detroit, right? What year did he leave Detroit?
2013.
Who did he play for after 13?
Tampa Bay.
Okay.
He was a very key piece of those. He was a very good piece of those Cup teams against those teams that went to the Eastern Conference in the Cup final.
After Tampa Bay, where did he go?
Philadelphia for 2 years. He got traded there in
I don't know who
2016-17.
Nope, I don't know who it is.
Really?
Nope.
I thought you might.
Who is it?
Valtteri Filppula.
Nope, don't know who that is. Nope.
Really?
Nope.
Wow.
I'm not a
one of the more underrated. One of the more underrated two-way centers in the league. Valtteri Filppula, great player for a lot of his career. Very underrated. I'd put him in the Hall of Very Good, in my opinion.
Hall of Very Good.
Hall of Very Good.
That's better than a lot of people. So
won a cup with Detroit during his first stint with the team.
Nice. Well, that's gonna do it for us, guys. Enjoy free agency this week. It's gonna be an exciting time, one of my favorite times of the year. And we'll have an episode for you next week recapping all the transactions and everything that went down. And we'll see you next week. Should be a very exciting episode.
Yeah, guys, we'll have one for you. Well, thanks for coming on the Step Square podcast. I'm Megan Calkins with the great Sean Wallace, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.